Welcome to the Granny's Table podcast, the only podcast where you can guarantee this is the second best thing to ever come out of two dudes alone in a garage.
I can't. What's the first best thing?
Apple?
Oh, okay.
No, I was saying second best because everything after that's probably not good.
Oh, okay. Well, there's that. I am your co-host, Chad Argo. I'm joined by my fellow co-host, my son, Eli Argo. And as you can tell, we're amateurs. but we're going to give this a go. Why did you see the need for something like this? You have been on me for quite some time to do a podcast with you.
Well, the first reason, obviously, I wanted to do a podcast was just the spending time together, and I like the social media and stuff like that. But the second thing is that people don't want to sit down and have genuine conversations anymore. I mean, I know just even in our lives, and you were talking about how the generation before you, it was like this, sitting around the table and having conversations when guests were over. Well, in mine and your generation, it's kind of faded out.
Mm-hmm.
And I notice now, like, even when we have guests over, it'll be something on the TV and everyone's on their phones just waiting for a meal to be ready so everyone can eat and leave.
Yeah, very true. And I know that I'm on my phone as you're saying that, but I'm actually setting a timer so that we can see how long we've been at this. Just to be real honest with everybody, this isn't our first take. We sat down yesterday, and the first couple of minutes probably really didn't go so well. Actually, they probably went better than the first couple of this one. But we got probably a 45 or 50-minute segment done and recorded and realized that the camera cut off at 20 minutes in because we ran out of storage. So we're going to try to recreate the magic, but I don't know about it. I think that's lost in the cloud.
Yeah.
So I took some notes to try to get us back to where we were yesterday. And the next thing I've got written down on the note is, what are some of our goals in doing this podcast?
I'd say number one, first and foremost, is just outreach. And I think that us sitting down and having conversations and maybe having a guest sitting down in conversations will hopefully inspire people to do the same in their own lives. I think that's truly the purpose of this whole thing.
I agree. I mean, like you said a minute ago, you said it very well. It's really missing right now, just sitting down and having a conversation. There are plenty of people who go to campuses and other places that will, and this isn't at Charlie Kirk in any kind of way, because Charlie did it differently than some of these guys you see. Charlie, I believe, was genuinely there to have a conversation. But a lot of these guys go and put a sign worded in a way that somebody's going to come in angry off the rip, and they get an angry just vomit of words from someone, and it's a hit clip and it goes viral, and there's no other point.
Exactly. That's what I was about to say. They want to do it for the clicks, not the impact that it can actually create. And I personally like him. I know you do too, but Crowder is even a good example of that.
That's exactly who I was thinking of.
He's going there with a sign that he knows is going to make people mad, so that they will come up and have those yelling sessions. But Charlie went there and just sat down. That's all he did. He just went there and sat down and let the conversations come naturally. And I think a lot of the reason why people got mad and it became like that sometimes is just because who he was.
Right. Yeah. Charlie got painted in a way that was really untrue and unfair to Charlie. I'm not going to say that I watched every clip ever of Charlie and was just this huge follower of his work before what we all saw happen essentially on live media.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew who he was and I knew what he was about. And I knew then and I know now that the narrative getting pushed about him was just not true. That dude really had a heart for young people. And he really wanted to just talk to them and have conversations with them. And with this, that's all I want to do. You know, used to when you went and visited someone's home, like Eli touched on earlier, they would sit down with a cup of coffee or whatever it was, and maybe some cookies or something, and everyone would sit around the kitchen table and just talk. And so many things happened around the table. That's something else that I didn't have in my notes that I just remembered. This table, this podcast is called Granny's Table, and it's not just a cliche name. This is my grandmother and my grandfather, my granny and pa. If you're from the South, you know that's what they are. This is their kitchen table from their home. And this table is neat because I grew up sitting around this table. My father and his siblings probably also grew up around this table. So I think that if this table could come alive and talk to us, the stories that this table could tell would be amazing. Of the joyous moments, I'm sure sad news has been broken to people at this table. I'll never forget, I was sitting at this table, and if you don't already know my backstory, we're going to touch on it some probably in episode 2. But if you haven't already, I'd highly recommend going over to Daniel Whitehead's Facebook page. I did a sit-down interview with him. It's the first one I've done in 5 or 6 years, and really was one of the most comfortable ones that I've done. Daniel made that a really comfortable environment, and I really was happy with the way that it turned out. But there's a plug, Daniel. Pay me for the sponsorship.
Yeah, that better be coming in.
I don't want to no bounce checks this time either. No, Daniel Whitehead is a really good dude.
A friend of the channel for sure.
He might be off screen pointing weapons at me, telling me I have to say that, but he might not. But no. Anyways, back on topic. I was sitting at this kitchen table, and I'm pretty sure I've told y'all this story before, but as in you. And I have another one of my children sitting off camera right now. But when my accident first happened, I was a missing person for 48 hours, 3 days, something like that. I really don't understand why that was. I had my ID on me, and I told the first responders my name, so there was really no reason for me to be a John Doe in Vanderbilt, but I was nonetheless. And they finally got a hold of my family and whatnot. But in that time, I guess Pa, was worried about me as any grandparent would be. And our grandparents, our Pa is gone. We lost him in 2020, but our granny's still around. But they're very prayerful people. They're not religious people. They go to church and they do those things, but both of those people have been such prayerful people for so long that when they speak, God listens. And
they had his number.
Yeah,
they were able to dial up the phone and call him.
Yeah, and my grandfather, I can remember when I was real little, and I remember it even as I got older. Once he retired, he always stayed busy. He was a working man. From the time he got up, if he wasn't sitting down eating a meal or reading his Bible, he was busy. But they had a huge yard, and they had the money for a riding mower. It's not like they could not afford this. But he would push mow that yard, and he'd push mow for 30 minutes or an hour, and he'd stop and he'd get a glass of water and he'd read his Bible. And there's no telling how many times he went cover to cover in that old book. But he'd always tell me that every time through, he learned something new. And that was just amazing to me. how you could read something so many times and it still speak to you in a different way. And, you know, it's the living word. But anyways, I'm getting way off topic, reminiscing. He, we were sitting at this table at their house, and he had tears in his eyes. And before he finished what he was saying, they were rolling down his face. He said, "In that time that you were missing, I was crying out to God." And he said that I was outside by myself, and me and God were talking. And he said God told him that he was taking me, that he was done. This was it. My time was up, essentially. This man bawling, telling me this. And he said, "I beg God, give him one more chance, please. I don't know where he's at. I don't know what his situation is. But God, I really believe if you'll give him one more chance and not take him, that he'll get it together this time." And he looked at me just as serious as he ever had and said, "This is your last chance, boy." He said, "If you mess this up, you ain't going to heaven and you ain't going to be here no more either." And that struck a nerve. I mean, that's as serious as conversations could get. But that's my grandparents for you. I mean, my grandmother, my granny prays. She's a very prayerful lady, and we've actually had conversations. You know, this podcast isn't her namesake. She doesn't live far from where we are, but I don't think that with our studio set up currently that it would be effective, or it might even border on elder abuse to try to bring her here.
Definitely, especially we've got basically a mountain coming down into the studio.
Yeah. So I'm gonna try to talk her into doing a sit-down interview with us, because I really, if for nothing else, if it gets 0 views, I would love to one day, when she's not around anymore, be able to have that moment captured in time forever, with just me and you and her in depth sitting and talking. And I think she'll do it. I think it's going to be really hard for her to understand that there's a lot of words that you can't say because of YouTube.
I'm having my editing cut out for me on that one.
Yeah, so it might be highly bleaked. No, she's I mean, I don't know how else to put it. She's Southern born, Southern raised, and just a strong faith Pentecostal Christian lady. And that's where we came from. You know, that's our beginnings. Actually, as a accidental segue on beginnings, I'm going to skip one of our things here and we'll come back to it. But our set and our sound setup and our video setup, this is all as ragtag as it can possibly be at the moment. This is literally some decorations from the house and my granny's kitchen table. Don't worry, ladies, this is not my wife's kitchen table. We use a different one in our kitchen. Yeah, probably. But it's, I mean, it is what it is for the moment. We wanted this thing to be around the kitchen table because when Eli first pitched it to me, it really struck with me how in depth that could be and how far we've gotten away from the kitchen table talks. As we grow and gain some traction, and I don't even care to put things from my own pocket into this, but this was what we could put together for the moment. Eli's been on me for a couple of years to do this, and you know, I've put it off, and things aren't going to get better until people decide that we're going to stand up together and make things better. Stop this division, stop this hate, stop this separation. But Zechariah 4:10 tells us, "Do not despise the small beginnings, for the Lord rejoices to see the work." And I really think that God's going to bless this podcast and use it because we're so okay with this humble start, and let's just start talking to people.
One thing, this podcast isn't about the clicks or the views or the notoriety or the dollar. It's not about that. I'm personally okay if this podcast never sees more than 50 views. If one person sees it
Yeah.
and is like, hey, maybe I should just sit down and have a conversation with that person, even though I don't like them.
Yeah. And I'm not even saying that we're doing this because we believe that our viewpoint is right. That, please do not take that from this. I want somebody that, whether I agree or disagree, I want someone to be able to come in and sit down, and if we're not on the same page, help me understand why you believe the way that you do. And that's all that I want from this. Show me what you're thinking. Show me your thought process and how you got to where you are in your thoughts on things, and how you got to your ideology. I would have an atheist, a Buddhist, I'd have a far leftist, anyone, even, we're even going to have on people that we agree with on most things, just to be able to sit down and hear their story, have talks. That's what this is about. Just sitting down and having a talk, with each other.
One thing I also want to make clear is that this is not a political podcast.
No.
This is a faith-based podcast, and unfortunately, that might just favor one side more than the other, but we're not going to come on here and hammer you with politics. That's not what this is about.
No.
And we're not going to be forcing our beliefs onto you.
Absolutely.
We want to lay it on the table. That's the whole point.
I want open dialogue. Also, in saying that, obviously, I know that when you like, comment, and share, it helps get me into the algorithm, but that's not why I'm saying this. I genuinely want you to comment. I'll even go as far as to say, if you don't want to comment, send me a private message and tell me the type of people you would like to see on. What would interest you? Whose views would you like to hear? I'm so sick of hearing this. We need to take that person's platform away because we don't agree with them. Don't let them speak. This country wasn't built on that. This country was built on, all right, look, we don't agree on these things. Let's sit down together and figure it out, though. And if we don't start doing that pretty soon, we're really, really going to see a divide that I don't know if we can get past. And I don't say that to be end of times or anything like that, but it's true. The division in this country just keeps going farther and farther. We keep getting farther away from each other instead of closer together.
We're truly on the brink of another civil war, and we are truly seeing what caused the first one happen again.
Yeah.
It's two sides that can't just come together and say, hey, let's talk this out. And it's starting to create a drift and a divide. And we have people killing one another because they won't sit down and have a conversation.
Yeah. Now, and I will say, in all honesty, this podcast at the moment is in my garage. So in these beginning stages, I may not be able to have somebody of a hugely dissenting or different opinion here, but I'm willing to go to a neutral, private location with them and sit and have the same conversation. This is my home, and I would really hate to know that someone sat down and had a conversation, and just because they disagree with me that much, they go out and decide to dox me. This is where my children sleep, and this place will get protected at all costs. So, in the very beginning stages right here, it doesn't take much to to create a studio. I can do it in a storage unit if I have electricity. So, that's something that, we'll work towards, but please comment and tell us who you want to see on. the topics you want to see discussed. We're going to try to, stick to a common theme, of course. I don't want to just be all over the place because I don't think that that's going to help anybody. But I think that just a common theme of living your faith out loud in America today and discussing how my faith affects my moral compass with other folks. And I'm not saying that someone that's not a believer does not have a moral compass. That's not what I'm saying at all. But to me, my faith is what drives my moral compass, if that makes sense.
I agree with that statement completely. And that doesn't mean because someone's a non-believer, or let's say they don't believe in a religion or anything like that, like you said, doesn't mean they don't have a set of morals. Everyone truly has a set of some form of morals.
Yeah.
However it's set up, everyone, even if you look at some of the most notorious killers, everyone has a line.
Yeah. Even I've seen interviews with the most cold-blooded of killers, and they ask him, "Did you do this?" And he's like, "No, that's
exactly.
horrible. Who would do that?" Just like, bro, you just killed your whole family.
Yeah.
You may have to bleep those two words out. But so in this first episode, we wanted to do an intro, and then, man, I really hate it that the actual first take of this, we flowed into Eli's story by complete and total accident. I actually believe I was somehow talking about Eli's first sermon that he preached last Wednesday, and if you haven't checked it out, that's on our YouTube page.
It is
as well. 17-year-old kid standing up and preaching God's word. That's an amazing thing. So, man, it just flowed so easy last time. Let's dive into your story though, son.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know me, name's Eli Argo. I'm 17 years old. And my story drives from something that most children in America struggle with today, and that was a online addiction, chronically being online. And truly, if the revival that we went to last weekend, I want to say, if that doesn't happen, this podcast doesn't happen, probably.
Yeah, no,
Surely.
I mean, you got your fire renewed there, and as did I. But you got it renewed in a way that you pushed me more to, we got to do this, and I will say too, Daniel Whitehead gets some props in that too, because I felt for quite some time now I needed to pick this back up and get back into ministry. I didn't know what I needed to do or how I needed to go about it. And actually, sometime back, I knew that my buddy Daniel was doing some podcasting stuff, and I was like, "Hey, I'd love to come on sometime and tell you my story. Me and you've never really sat and talked about it." And doing that was another catalyst, but definitely that revival was a huge wake up call for you, for sure.
And I didn't touch on this the last time we talked about it, but the more I've thought about it, I truly think of that as an attack from the devil. The more and more I've thought about it. So I actually want to backtrack to before, from the first time I truly felt God's impact on my life that I can remember.
Yeah.
And it's also how we meet Daniel.
Yeah.
So I want to say 11, 12 years old, somewhere in there. My mom went to school with this kid named Casey.
Mm-hmm.
And we were living not far from him at all. And he had slowly been kind of coming back into our lives. And he asked me if I wanted to go to church camp with him. Yeah. And so we're like, yeah, let's do it. And so, I pack my things and I ride with him to a place I've never been before. And it's Rock Castle Church. I want to say it's an Emmanuel Church. I can't be for sure.
I'm not sure. It's essentially a non-denominational church.
So I go there for the first time. It's a place out on Old Baxter, and I get there and I don't know anyone. And there's this kid I instantly start clicking with. His name's Isaiah. Well, this kid named Isaiah, who I'm still friends with to this day, introduces me to Dayton. And Dayton is Daniel's son. And so, I talked to them for a bit, and then I ride with the pastor and Casey to the church camp. And once I get there, I find out I'm placed in a cabin with Isaiah, Dayton, and then there was a few more kids in there that I was with. And so, and this church camp was unlike anything I'd experienced before. Whenever I tell you I've never seen God move through people my age all in one place at one time like that, I truly mean that. There was kids 10 years old coming up to the altar and crying out to God and speaking in tongues and just getting saved and everything. It was beautiful, truly. And so I did that, and while there, it almost felt like someone was talking in my ear. And it felt like that I was supposed to be almost doing something I wasn't doing yet, but it wasn't profound enough yet. And I wouldn't realize I was being called that year at church camp. And I go home and I have this awesome experience. I'm so excited. And then about a week later, it's, whatever again.
Well, and now, in all truth and reality, a lot of that blame is to be set on me and your mother, because we weren't attending church then, not regularly. Our young son had this fire, and we found every excuse we attended Faith Chapel during that time. We took you to Faith Chapel a couple of different times, but you really wanted to go back to this Rock Castle church. And we found every excuse to go to Faith Chapel instead. It was way closer to home, which it was. But we as parents should have done a better job of nurturing that in that time. Now, the decisions made to fall back from that, you can only make yourself. Who's to say that if I would have taken you to Rock Castle every time the doors are open, same results still would have happened. But we do have to take some blame in that as the parents. And that's something we have to do. Men, you got to be able to admit when you're wrong. You got to be able to apologize to your children when you were wrong. You have to do that. It's part of being a man. It's part of being a Christian. That's a real big thing to accountability. That's a whole hour-long podcast or sermon in itself. Accountability has been lost across the board. Nobody is willing to just admit when they messed up.
Because it's easier to point a finger.
Absolutely.
And so after that church camp, I believe that was the summer of my third grade year. So I'm transitioning into my fourth grade year. And this is the year where I met a lot of the friends I would have in school all the way till I decided to go homeschooled after my freshman year. And I still loosely keep in contact with some of them. But, and they were all talking about this game. And the game was Fortnite. And at this time, everyone is talking about it. This is 2017. This game has literally took hold on the world.
Oh, yeah. I'm a grown adult who hasn't played video games since PlayStation 2, and I knew full well about Fortnite and how much buzz it had.
And especially you get people like all these famous people are trying it too, like Drake, and you have the rise of all these streamers and all that. But I hadn't personally played it yet. I just kept hearing about it, and my friends talking about how they played it last night, and that was something crazy to me too, because I just had an Xbox 360 at the time and could play some games with someone who was right next to me, but they were talking about playing it together, not at the same place.
Right.
And that was kind of crazy to me. So fast forward a little bit, everyone's talking about this game, and I finally get my hands on it just going to a local kid's house that we lived near, and he had it on his Xbox, and that's the first time I got my hands on it. And I played it for the first time, and instantly it was just a game changer. I mean, this game was like nothing else I'd ever played before, and it was insane. And so I played it that time, go home. It is not on the Xbox 360. That console was older than me, but I played it for the first time. And so this is when I made the decision to go up to my mom and dad and be like, hey, I want a PS4. And they were like, well, you better get some PS4 money. That was a $500 console. They were like, you better find some PS4 money. And so going into the next summer, I worked that entire summer up till church camp, attended church camp again. And during this church camp, I had the same group of friends, Isaiah, Dayton, all of them. And at this one is where I truly finally felt that God was calling me to preach. And I felt this fire in me like never before. And I would actually give a testimony of what it was like growing up with parents that were in ministry and what it was like afterwards now that they weren't doing it anymore. And so that was...
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I think I actually jumped the gun the first time when I was saying that we should take accountability for potentially not nurturing that flame that you had ignited. I think it was more so the second time you went than the first time that you went.
And actually, the first time I went is also whenever I met Daniel for the first time, and he was my cabin counselor. But the friendship wasn't there yet. We were friends, and I'll be honest, whenever he was leaving, he left earlier than the rest of the counselors. I went up to him and cried in his arms. Like, I was like, don't leave. Like, and so the second time is when it was really like, this was becoming my homie, even though the age gap was there. It was like, I don't know, he said it himself, it was like we were on the same level almost.
Yeah.
And so this time, I feel the indictment for preaching coming, and then this is also when you meet Daniel for the first time, because he brings me home from church camp this time. And this is where that whole friendship started to form really strongly. And then so after that, you helped me with the rest of the PlayStation, because I got like 350, something like that. I was really close.
You were right there. I threw in 50 or 75 bucks or something. It wasn't much.
And so I get this PlayStation, and the first week it's on. I barely left that room at all, just sitting there playing. And it stayed like that for a while. Well, then we moved out of the house we were living in to moving to a camper in hopes of building on a piece of property we had, which unfortunately didn't work out. And eventually on Christmas of 22 probably. I get a gaming computer. This was a game changer for me personally, because now I could do everything I saw all the pros and the streamers doing, because I had access to that now. And so from 2022 till it was December of 22, I couldn't actually start using it till January, so we'll call it 23. In a span of 2 years, I clocked in around 4,000 something hours on Fortnite alone, 4,060 hours, something like that. And then on the 3 Maddens that came out in that time period, I clocked a total of like another 4,000 on all 3 of them combined. I checked that today. So that's 8,000 hours of just sitting at a computer for 2 years.
Yeah, we in take 1, I actually broke that down on a calculator, and just Minecraft was right at 40 hours a week, wasn't it? Which is essentially a full-time job. And then when you added Minecraft and the other games and the gameplay, it was 21 hours of overtime is what I said. So it was like 61 hours a week. Bro was working a full-time job and putting 21 on overtime in a computer.
While still going to school.
What's it, Mike? With the
Oh, yeah. But while still going to school.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't sleep. And I didn't necessarily admit to them, this is no fault on them, truly. It was a lot of lying, a lot of sneaking on, and lying about how much sleep I was getting. Because there was times where I'd get 2 hours of sleep in 3, 4 days because I would be so exhausted. But when I'd lay down, I wanted to hop back on. I had to play. The hits of dopamine just had to come in.
So yeah, that was something we discussed before as well. You know, it carries true over social media. It carries true over so many different things. Our bodies are wired naturally to the dopamine hit, the endorphin release. It's essentially a treat. Our brain is getting a treat from that, and so the thing that gives you the dopamine hit, you're going to chase that, and you see it all the time across so many different things. A gambling addict will chase that, and I was watching, I think it's Mickey Mace. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
And he was talking about gambling addiction. He said that gamblers actually like losing. The gambling addict, because it's the feeling of the chase that they're chasing. And so if they're just sitting there winning, they're not getting that feeling of having to do the math. Oh, I'm down by this. If I do this, this will bounce and this will work. You know what I mean?
Well, what I will tell you is whenever I was playing that game competitively, right? Anytime I was doing good and starting to actually get somewhere, it would start to get boring.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever I would lose and do so disappointing that I probably should have hung it up, it was this new fire.
Yeah. I'm going to bounce back better next time.
Exactly.
You'll hear a lot of addicts, and there's been psychologists and things speak on this. An addict that is out of their fix, they meeting, I'm trying so hard to choose these words carefully, meeting the connection that gets them the fix, that fixes their sickness.
Mm-hmm.
That meeting and that exchange alone is a dopamine hit that will instantly start making a sick addict start feeling better before the chemical is even in their system.
Because I did it.
Yes, it's the dopamine hit of the score, the chase, the looking for it, the hunt, and then the score.
It's the equivalent to like if you have a headache and you take ibuprofen, you instantly start feeling like you don't have a headache anymore because you acknowledged, hey, I took medicine, I should be feeling better.
Yeah, you're getting more down the rabbit hole of it's not butterfly effect, but
Mandela?
No, I can't think of the right word right now.
We're just some southern boys in a garage.
Yeah,
that's beyond our pay grade.
Yeah, let's get back on track in your story. We're getting into a field of medicine, and I don't think we belong there.
So we were talking about the hours. And so I've been doing this, and at this point, I'm almost starting to look sickly, truly, because all I was doing was sitting in a room doing that. I got these bags under my eyes. I'm more pale than Eminem in the 90s. Like, I'm looking rough. And so then we start going to church a little bit, and I'm still like, I'm not going to go. And so then we get to, and what really started all this was my freshman year, I was playing football, and then due to injuries, I had the inability to play anymore, which took away my one ability to go to school. And so I went homeschooled, which did improve my grades, but also made the addiction worse. So I think in those years before I went homeschooled, I probably really realistically had 1,500 hours on that game. But now I'm homeschooled. I got no other obligations than 1 hour of school a day, and I'm at it. So I've been going at it at a stupid rate for a long time, And so then we go to revival. And on the first night, it felt like something inside of me was telling me I wasn't doing what I was supposed to. And I kept having this feeling and it genuinely felt like a burning feeling in my chest, almost like acid reflux or something like that. And the pastor looks at me and tells me, that feeling you got inside of you, son, it's not going to quit till you answer the call. Something on the lines of that. That
Yeah.
might not be exactly.
That's real close.
And that's when I knew, and I remembered all those years ago, whenever I was told that, or not told, but first answered the call to preach. And so we have that. And then also during the first night, I'm baptized in the Holy Spirit. I start talking in tongues. And then the service after that, another was a night with 3 services, and at every single one of those, I mean, I felt fire inside of me.
Mm-hmm.
And the preacher started prophesying to me and told me that I wasn't doing what I was needing to and that I needed to preach. And, this wasn't nothing new. I've had Granny in my ear for a long time after I told her for the first time, you better preach soon. I gotta see you preach before I go. You gotta preach sometime soon. And been on me and on me. And then, so finally I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do this. And I delivered my first sermon on a Wednesday night, which is also on our YouTube channel. Check it out. And it was that Saturday night after all of that, and I talked to the pastor, and he said he wanted me to deliver a message. And I started getting it together. And that night, me and Dad were on the way home, and he was like, if you're going to do this, you have to actually live the walk, which means you're going to have to cut things out. And I looked at him and I told him it was over. And that night on forwards, it had been unplugged in my room. It's actually in my sister's room now. I gave it to her. And if I learned anything from it, it's that it's not worth it and that it's done by design so that you'll be stuck in that place.
If you could speak to someone in your generation or maybe even a bit younger than you that say is starting to fall into this but isn't fully there yet, or someone your age who is fully there, what would you say to them?
It is so rare, one, to succeed in that. And the thing is if you don't, and don't take this as motivation as, this is the only option, don't do that. But if you don't, you are left with nothing. And you lose so much more than what you gain from it. I think in that entire time, I think I made a total of $300 over the course of 2 years and lost 2 years of my life in exchange for money that I don't even know where it's at now. And
it didn't even play for your PlayStation?
It didn't even play for the PlayStation. And I've watched, and I think it's on, at least the game that I was playing, that's actually the easiest to make money on. I think it's 2% ever make $1 and less than 0.5% ever make enough for 1 year of average American income.
$1, 2%?
Make $1.
And then less than that, decimal point percentages?
Make a 1 year's worth of average American salary.
Over the entire course of their playing time.
Mm-hmm.
So how are these guys making money then? Sponsorships and things?
Okay, so if you do good enough in the tournaments, which is like top 50 players in all of the United States, then you make some dollars. Or if you're top in one of their championships, it's split up over the world or whatever, you get to come to this big event where everyone's at and there's $1 million on the line. But a lot of it's just the streaming, the revenue you get from that, and yeah, sponsorships, and also organizations signing them to their organization and saying like, hey, we'll give you $2 million to come be a part of our organization because we know you'll make us 10.
Okay. So what repercussions have you seen personally from, I mean, let's just call it what it is. It was an addiction. What has that done to you in your life personally?
It's like I was 14 years old and now I'm 17 years old. I have had to relearn a lot. I struggle now in social situations, having one-on-one conversations with people. I struggle with actually speaking and having just straight up talking because my language is so obscured to this online slang. Exactly. I want to talk in slang and all that all the time. Whenever I'm almost an adult, I need to be more professional and carry myself with more dignity. And so, um, it. And also, at 17 years old, I don't have a driver's license. I don't have a driver's permit. Um, I don't really have a lot of friends either, which that's also more recently been by design, as I've been following my faith and such. But I didn't experience what a lot of teenagers experience at my age. I had times, yeah, where I went out and hung out with friends, but not like how a lot of people grow up every Saturday night going out with their friends, or it was maybe once every 4 months I was getting out of the house. And so socially, I struggle now. I don't have a driver's license or a driver's permit. Um, I haven't had a job besides working for you. Um, just a lot of things. It's literally like I was 14 years old and now I'm 17. I've had to relearn how to be a big brother. I've had to relearn how to be a man around the house. I've had to relearn how to be a little brother. And all of these things I missed out on because I lived behind a screen. Also, very simple things like eyesight is something that like I notice now whenever I look at a screen and try to read something, I struggle with that sometimes because my eyes are shot. Well, not shot, but they're not how they should be at my age because I was sitting this far away from a screen for 2 years.
I want to back up something to something you actually said it twice. And there was no coaching in that. Me and you've never really had, I mean, I've told you a lot that the world you're living in isn't the real world and the damage that you're doing to yourself is damaging. As a parent, should I have stepped in and totally just taken this away? I don't know. I know that we all have to have hobbies and things that we enjoy. And I like messing with my truck. I like watching football games. I even like getting on social media. But I should have been more firm in setting the boundary of you're taking this beyond a hobby and you're allowing it to consume you. But for any of you parents out there that are watching this, I really hope that you're listening to what he's saying and you're taking it to heart. And especially any of you parents that have battled with addiction, because he said something twice and it struck me. He said it was like I was 14 and then I was 17. Anybody that has been in addiction knows that from the moment you become an addict, your maturity level stops progressing. This is 100% proven, psychologists and scientists. So if somebody is a full-blown addict at 17 and they don't stop using until they're 30, their emotional and social maturity is basically that of a 17-year-old. You have stopped your own progression because you shut it down essentially with what you were putting in your body. You said the exact same thing that an addict would say about Narcotics, is that an okay word?
Should be.
But you were saying it about video games. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So what would you say if you could say something to the parents out there?
Um, I know personally, I probably younger me wouldn't like me saying this, or me from a week ago wouldn't like me saying this, but have your child show you their screen time. Just have them show you their screen time, or if they play games or stuff like that, have them show you how many hours they have, because unfortunately, it is probably a lot more than what you think. A lot more. Because without me telling you, I bet you didn't think I had 8,000 hours on my computer.
No, I knew it was a lot, but those numbers actually baffled me in take one that we had to scrapyard. It's a staggering amount of numbers, and
And you want to hear something crazy too? The hours it says it requires to go professional in that game, I was at 4,000. You know how much time that was? They say it's 10,000.
In the same amount of time? Or spaced out is okay.
They did it, the professionals did it in a 7-year span, 10,000 hours.
Okay.
I did 4,000 in roughly a 2-year span. But if you would have took from the first time I started playing, I probably had probably really not that much. On the PlayStation, I really didn't play that much.
Probably 5,000.
Probably 5,000 in total, yeah.
So I think we're at a place where we can start landing the plane on all this. We discussed who we were, our goals that we wanted to see happen in this, what we want from you as the viewer, because we want to put out what you want to see, sort of. Don't take that the wrong way, but I want to have these conversations. I don't know why. I just really, really feel the desire to have these conversations at this table and get other stories out there. Not just conversations about points of view, but highlighting other success stories of young kids who have went down the same path, or addicts. Behind the scenes, we've discussed several people that we're going to look at interviewing. I think our next episode, we're going to have Eli essentially interview me in kind of the same relaxed format, but I think we're going to just keep it like this. It's just going to be relaxed, not scripted, one take. We're not doing it live right now, mainly because of the capabilities. I would have to get, my garage is not connected to my house. It's actually far enough away that the Wi-Fi barely works. I was actually texting back and forth with my wife those couple of texts that I sent, and it was kind of iffy on whether it wanted to send those. So going live isn't an option. In this first phase moment, I think we're just going to try to upload once a week. On Mondays is when it'll upload. Is that what we decided?
I think Mondays, and we're going to try to shoot for about 5 p.m., I believe.
Okay, so we'll get in that schedule, get in that groove. If it's really starting to take off, we'll look at another upload day of like Thursday or something. And if it just snowballs into that, we'll go live every day if there's topics and things and a need for it. But I'm not going to spend my life going live every single day to speak to 10 people at a time.
Right. And another thing I wanted to discuss is that doesn't leave live out as a possibility at all during these stages. We have talked about if a major event was to happen, we could locate up to the house for that major event during the hours following whatever it was that happened.
Yes. That's something we can absolutely look at doing. We want to be here for you, and we want all voices to start getting shared equally and not shut down. You're never going to see me sit somebody down right here and try to get them in a I got you moment. I'm not going to do that. Now, if you want to come on here and be interviewed and you've got some bad press going on from something,
we're going to ask you.
I'm going to ask you hard questions.
But just so that you know, if you're someone who has thought about maybe wanting to come on, seeing our advertisement or promo, you will know the questions before we click the record button. But there is, and we can even discuss leaving in and taking some, but there is some questions we're not going to move on.
Yeah.
We are going to ask the hard and difficult questions because I know me personally, I'm so tired of seeing the same thing over and over again. Yeah. These softball interviews where they're asking the same 3 questions they've asked the last 5 guests.
Yeah. There's so much going on right now, and it seems like we have consistently swept it under the rug and hid it in the closet. And it's time to bring these things out and talk about them. I really think that conversation can do so much to change situations. And if you see this and you just totally disagree with everything that we say completely and totally, come sit down, bring it to the table, sit down, let's talk about it. I mean, what else have you got to add?
I don't have anything, but I'd like to say thank you for stopping by, and we'll see you next time at the table.
See you at the table.